Channing Canada says he has more confidence than ever at spring practice. He's part of a very experienced secondary that could pay big dividends for TCU this fall.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. I've been covering TCU athletics for the past 12 seasons. We're brought to you today by Gametime. If you need tickets to the big game, check out the Gametime app today. You can use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for a $20 discount on your first purchase. We got a lot to get to today. I want to cover TCU baseball, taking 2 out of 3 from Houston over the weekend. Didn't get to that on Monday because there was so much going on, namely TCU women's basketball taking down Notre Dame. Unfortunately, on Monday night, Frog season came to an end. Mark Campbell and his squad, they fall to Texas 58-47. We'll break down that in segment 2. Some possibly exciting news on the transfer front already for the women's team heading into the offseason. But we start today. We're in the middle of spring practice. Jeremy Clark, I saw him today say it's practice number 5 that's happening this morning as I'm recording. And we heard from Sonny Dykes at the start of spring camp. He talked about where they are, said he was excited about what the team was doing. Kind of building off that, Channing Canada, one of the corners for TCU. And Channing's one of those guys. So corner is, I wouldn't say it's unsettled. I guess it's unsettled who's going to be your starters. I think you have a number of different players who could be contributors. Avery Helm coming off the ACL injury. They brought in Elijah Jackson from Washington, who has been a multi-year starter on a team that had a lot of success when he was there. They also have Vernon Glover coming back from an injury. Javon McIvor made some waves late in the season. So there's some options here going into this upcoming season for TCU at the corner spot. And I think if you look at the raw numbers from last season, I've said this before. I feel like when we talk about national pundits and those publications making predictions or sort of figuring out what teams are going to be in preview magazines and all those things, they miss context sometimes. So there's going to be articles written about TCU football. And one of the things that might be mentioned is that they had a really strong pass defense last year. Because if you just look at the yardage that they gave up, they did a pretty solid job. But if you watched TCU football through the course of the season, I think you would say Lamarian James did some good things. I felt like Canada and McIvor came on in the second half of the year. JT Broughton really struggled all year long. But overall, this was not a secondary that you felt super comfortable with in one-on-one coverage situations, which is what Andy Avalos would ultimately like to do. You can't bring pressure from all different angles and do a lot of exotic things from a formation standpoint if you don't feel confident in leaving your corners in one-on-one situations and their ability to make plays. So a big key when we talk about the defense stepping up this season is going to be the ability of these guys to handle that pressure on a week-to-week basis. Now, the good news for TCU, you could argue this is the most experienced group on the roster, the back end of this defense. At safety, Bud Clark returning for another year. We saw Bud, he was really reinvigorated after about the midway point of last season. Started picking the ball off more, making more plays, had the interception against Arizona, had the interception against Utah, was flying around doing things. Jamel Johnson was in the portal briefly, coming back, more of a thumper, but this is a guy that has shown an ability to make plays on the ball. And I think he's still kind of learning and developing, but he got a lot of snaps last year. Austin Jordan, the transfer from Texas, I liked what I saw from him late in the season. So you'll see more of his impact on this team this upcoming year. And then at corner, you really can't overstate what a big loss that was with Helm and Glover going down immediately. It hurt your starters. It hurt your depth. It's sort of similar to what I've talked about with baseball through the first couple months of the season. When you have injuries like that, it's not just that you're losing that player's production. So you lose Avery Helm and you lose his production. That stinks. But what you also lose is now everybody has to kind of take a step forward and play in a spot that they might be comfortable with. Suddenly JT Broughton is one of your main corners. Where before the year, he's competing for a job. If he's not the starter, he could be just kind of good depth. Well, now he has to play a lot more snaps. Lamarian James, and I think Lamarian actually stepped up and did a nice job as the season went on, but suddenly he's thrown into a role where he's putting more one-on-one situations. But Channing Canada is a guy that in the second half of the season, you saw some real progress. And he told Jeremy Clark and other reporters at practice yesterday, he said one thing that's really changed is he had a lot more confidence. And part of that is he understands what this defense is. He said last year he knew what his responsibility was, and that was about it. He's processing a new scheme. So he had that locked down. He understood what his responsibility was, but at all three levels of the defense, he didn't really know. Now he knows these calls more fluently. And so he has an understanding of not only what he's doing, but what the rest of the secondary and the rest of the defense is doing as well. That allows him to play with more confidence. That's a huge key when we're talking about really any team sport, but especially football. Each player is working within the context of a team setting. Everybody has to do their job well. And you can't get caught thinking all the time. It has to become muscle memory. Where it's like, okay, I know this is what I'm doing. My body, my brain are working together. We know what we're doing. This is how we attack this coverage. This is how we attack this play call. So you have a scenario where this upcoming season, I don't expect Avery Helm to participate a lot in spring practice because in the last few years, you've seen this from TCU and I think other programs as well. They're sort of handling spring ball more like the NFL handles training camp. Okay, how much practice do my vets really need? Now, I will say, I hope Avery gets a lot of reps in the fall because while I don't have doubts that he understands, how to play the position, I do think it's beneficial for him to get more live action within the context of this defensive scheme because he went down early in fall camp last year. So he had the install in the spring, and that was really it. So just getting those, day-to-day reps is going to be important. But MacIvor is a really cool story. Walk on at Austin Peay. Ends up playing well there. Transfers to TCU. And in the second half of the season, he's just one of those dudes. Like, you see the physicality. You see the competitiveness. Now, that's not the end-all, be-all. You also have to have the athleticism and the talent to make plays. But late in that Baylor game, in the Arizona game, I mean, he's just a guy that is going to compete and is willing to be physical and is willing to jam receivers to the line of scrimmage and try to make plays. One of the coaches that TCU brought in this offseason to work with the safeties, Trey Watson from Cal, who worked under Justin Wilcox, worked briefly with Andy Avalos early in his career. He has been known to lead defenses and to lead secondaries that create turnovers. If TCU could just simply do that, it would be a big step up, right? Turning the ball over, giving your offense good field position, playing complementary football, that's going to be huge. There's going to be a lot of pressure on this defense early in the season. I think the offense eventually will be humming, but you're reshuffling your offensive line a little bit. Change at wide receiver. I think they have talent there, but aside from Eric McAllister, you have nobody coming back who has real production. Running back, you're probably going to be trading reps there at least early in the season to figure out who and maybe just if you have a guy who can tote the rock 15 to 20 times a game. You're facing a coach in week one in Bill Belichick in North Carolina that I am sure will have a really good game plan for TCU's offense because that's what he's done for years. You have an offense going through some transition. So the defense, at least through the first few weeks of the season, with the continuity they have, they might have to lead the charge to a certain extent. I don't expect through the entire year for that to be the case. I think the offense will get to a place where they're playing at a high level, and they might just hit the ground running because Josh Hoover is coming into year 3 and he knows what he needs to do. He's a super productive quarterback, and that can make everybody better. That can elevate the play of everyone. But for these corners, for these safeties, the front 7 of this defense, if this defense takes a big step forward, this team is going to be really good. Sonny has not had even that 2023 team or 2020. You know what I'm talking about. The team that went to the playoff. I got my years mixed up in my head. I would say they had an opportunistic defense. That defense forced turnovers. They knew how to get stops. They had games. I mean, the Texas game, my goodness, they dominated. But for the most part, it was a bend but don't break philosophy, trying to keep everything in front of you. Get a big stop. Get the occasional turnover. It was not a group that was carrying this team on a week in and week out basis. But if that side of the ball can make a leap, even with a slightly less productive offense, I think you're talking about a better team this upcoming season. It's always difficult when a season ends. When we come back, we'll try to put into context TCU women's basketball and the historic year they had. That's coming up next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. It's the first of the month, which usually means you're getting some cash flow, which is great, but it also means bills. Those automatic payments are coming out. You're checking your account like, man, do I have enough? Do I need to move some money around? Why don't you try Monarch Money? It's an app that makes you your personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So stop just managing your money and build your wealth. That all-in-one convenience is key. It has easy collaboration, making money with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year. Give Monarch Money a try today. I told you about Gametime at the start of the show. I love Gametime. It's the easiest to use secondary ticketing app out there. You download it, you search TCU baseball, upcoming TCU football season, the big games coming up in March, whatever it is, Gametime can make it easy. And they have curated picks that make it easier to find better values for your tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. Check the Gametime app. There's amazing deals on huge matchups coming up. They have the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Peace of mind. It shows you what your view is going to be like from your seat before you make that purchase. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. TCU women's basketball, they fall to Texas by a score of 58-47 on Monday night. And Texas's defense was just absolutely relentless in this ball game. I went into it thinking that the Frogs would have a really tough time matching up with Madison Booker, who is Texas's, I mean, she's 6'1", she's a point forward, and she had a good game. I mean, she had 17 points on 8 of 17 shooting, but it wasn't like she was completely dominant on the offensive side of the ball. Rory Harmon had 13. She was fairly efficient. The difference in this ball game, though, TCU, a team that has scored pretty much on everybody all year long, held to under 50 points. They had 9 points at the end of the first quarter, 21 points at halftime, and it was a 2-point game at halftime. To TCU's credit, they were never really fully out of it until the last couple of minutes. I mean, it never quite felt like they got to a place where they were going to make a significant push to take the lead. But, they would get down by 9 or 11, and they would make a little bit of a run to make it a more competitive ball game. Right before halftime, they went on a 7-0 run. Haley Van Lith hit a fadeaway jump shot at the halftime buzzer to put them down by 2. They tied it up at 29 with a little under 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. But Texas just had an answer each and every time. And it wasn't, they were guarding full court, but they weren't trapping TCU. They were just making it really difficult for Donovan Hunter to inbound the basketball. They had a couple 5-second calls early, just trying to get the ball in, which, that shouldn't happen at this level. But again, it wasn't like they were throwing double teams at TCU. It was just outstanding pressure. They were hedging on ball screens. So they weren't blitzing the ball screens where they would throw 2 defenders with ball handler. They would basically, their post player, as they would see Prince go to set the screen, would just flash, get around that screen, and she would stay there long enough until they could switch back to their original responsibilities. And they did a great job of that. And TCU could not, there were times where Prince was running open, or Daisha Merrill had some good minutes. I wouldn't have minded to see her on the floor more in the second half because I just thought she played well. But there were instances where they would be running free for a couple seconds, but whether it was Van Lith or Hunter, because of, the way that Texas was showing out and hedging on those screens, they couldn't identify the passing lanes quickly enough to get the ball to their post players. So they don't have a tough game. 4 points, 5 fouls. She fouled out with 5 minutes left in the ball game. Only had 1 block, was not really much of a factor defensively. And so it's disappointing. I didn't come away thinking that TCU was a better team and they just played horribly. I do feel like they missed some opportunities. I think there was a world where they could have won that game last night. But nobody was able to get in a rhythm offensively. Haley's numbers at the end of the day didn't look bad. Well, she was 3 of 15 shooting. I take it back. She had 17 points, but 10 of those points were the free throw line. She did a nice job in the second half of just kind of putting her head down and getting to the rim. And she got some foul calls doing that. But shooting the basketball, it was tough sledding. It was that way for everybody. They hit 2 threes in the first quarter. Agnes hit one, and then Taylor Bigby hit one as time expired in the first. And that put them at 9 points. But without those 2 shots, it would have been a really tough opening frame for TCU. It kind of reminded me, and Steven Johnson mentioned this as well, it sort of reminded me of the K-State game. They were just completely out of sorts offensively. And they would occasionally make a little bit of a run, but you never felt like that they really found their footing. And in the end, it cost them the ball game. So obviously, a historic season for this team, a great run, make the Elite Eight. And now there's a lot to build on going into next year. And speaking of, Mark Campbell has been known to get stuff done in the portal. Number 2 pick in this year's WNBA draft. And just finished her 4th season at Notre Dame, where she averaged 15 points a ball game. She hit the transfer portal last night. Shams Charania, who typically covers the NBA, actually broke this news. He said, it's unprecedented this is happening, but one of the top picks in the draft is foregoing the draft. But it's not because she wants to stay at her own school. She's going to hit the portal. And the name of this Twitter account sounds ridiculous, but I will tell you that this is a person that seems to have good insight on women's basketball and the way it's moving. Skim Mulkey Skim Mulkey said, according to multiple sources, TCU was the front runner for Olivia Miles. So it's early in the process. I don't know how it's going to play out. But if they land Olivia Miles, it's sort of like picking up Haley Van Lith last offseason. She shot 40% from three this year, which was a huge jump from her career shooting percentage from beyond the arc. But she can score. She can put the ball on the deck and get to the rim. Maddie Shear is going to return. She dealt with injuries this year. She was a transfer from Kentucky that they were really excited about going into the season. Donovan Hunter will be back. So there are a few players, and they have 3 freshmen coming in. 2 of them are 6'7". I don't doubt Mark Campbell can rebuild this thing. But, I mean, he's rebuilding basically the whole roster again. Madison Connor's gone. Sedona Prince is gone. Haley Van Lith. Agnes Amanopu. Daisha Merrill, who I thought gave him some good minutes off the bench last night. I mean, it's a roster under construction. But I believe that he can do it and do it well. And we'll see how he attacks it this offseason. When we come back, TCU baseball takes 2 out of 3 from Houston. We'll talk about that next year on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. If you are a plumber, if you own your own HVAC company, getting supplies can be difficult. Give Supply House a try today. Get the supplies you need, made for skilled trades. They have an easy-to-use website that's packed with helpful resources and the latest product to help you get the job done right, plus complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 and plus top brands. You'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for the extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Supply House. Give it a try today.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
That's right. Bracket Breakdown coming again this weekend as the Final Four gets started. TCU baseball, I wanted to talk about this Monday, but we had so much stuff going on, didn't get to it. They took on Houston in Houston this past weekend, and they won 2 out of 3. They lost on Friday night by 1 run. Braden Sloan actually gave up a double in the 7th inning that led to break the tie, and Houston took the lead and ended up winning that ball game. And then on Saturday, I think the biggest development from this weekend of baseball, Cademan Parker pitched well. 5 innings, 2 hits, struck out 3, walked 2, threw 70 pitches. So along with Tommy Lepore, you now have 2 starters on the weekend you feel pretty good about. Now that 3rd starter has not been solidified yet. Noah Franco got an opportunity again on Sunday against Houston and really struggled. Did not make it out of the 1st inning. So Luis Rodriguez came in and did a nice job in long relief, and then they were able to put together some runs later in that ball game. Anthony Silva hit a grand slam. That was the exclamation point on a really good day, hitting the ball. Also, Houston's defense helped out by kicking the ball over the yard and having multiple errors. But TCU gets to over 500 in Big 12 play. They play UTSA tonight, and then they get BYU on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sawyer Stroh-Snyder had another huge weekend. I think he had 3 home runs over the weekend. He did sit out on Sunday, and I don't know what the reasoning for that was. I'll be curious to see if he's in the lineup tonight against UTSA or if they wait until the weekend series to get him going. And BYU, because they don't play on Sundays, again, that's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series at Lupton. I think all you can do right now is continue to pile up wins as much as you can while these young guys continue to figure things out and get better. And you're seeing the light bulb come on for some of them. I also think they're getting a better feel for what this lineup's going to look like on a week-to-week basis moving forward. But They've won 2 weekend series in a row. It hasn't always been pretty, but they've handled their business. Now, Tech and Houston, I think, are 2 of the worst teams in the league. But that's who was on your schedule. You took care of who you had to, and now you move on to BYU, which should be another winnable series at home. So we'll have coverage of that later on in the week. I'll let you know how the midweek game goes tomorrow. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel.